G'day guys and gal. There are a lot of what ifs in 40k lore, many which actually have been somewhat explored in the source material, whether it be by seeing potential futures or time travel. However, the biggest what if, the what if that would change everything, is what if Horus beat the Emperor and claimed victory during the Horus Heresy? What if after mangling Sanguinius, he then turboed his daddy? Would he become the Supreme Master of the Galaxy? Would he then be soon killed by Rogel Dawn or the arriving Leman, Lion and Gilliman? Would the Chaos Gods kill him now that his primary purpose had been achieved? There are a lot of question marks regarding what would have actually happened if Horus got what he wanted. But fortunately, by using my small brain, embarrassingly thorough knowledge of Warhammer lore at the expense of me having a functional social life and sheer girth, I've been able to narrow it down to a couple likely outcomes. Before we get started, the Major Minis painting competition is nearly at an end. Literally 24 hours to submit your paint jobs, and guys, I am so humbled by the response. We have had over 300 entries, with many of those being seriously impressive and creative works. It's crazy to think that something I worked on, produced, printed and sent out to you guys and gal would get such amazing effort put into them. This will be the easiest $10,000 that I'll ever give away. You guys have earned every cent of it. I'll be announcing the winners later this week in its own video, so if you've entered, keep an eye out for that. But irrespective of the competition, the minis are all stocked and ready for whoever wants them, whether that be the Golden Warriors of the Emperor, the Space Elves, the Chaotic Legions or other alien forces. There is a mini here for everyone. It's always nice when people are like, hey man, I got your mini, and actually ended up buying a full official army because of it. It creates this symbiotic vibe with GW where the success of one is the success of both. We're currently running a 20% off discount for the Etsy and eBay stores to help get those off the ground, so that's probably the best place to purchase right now. Today we'll go over what would have happened had Horus defeated the Emperor, starting with the immediate aftermath, followed by how it would have impacted the setting from then on. Let's get into it. There is actually an in-lore prophecy that detailed exactly what would have happened if Horus won, that I want to start with. However, it's important to remember that foresight and prophecy within 40k is fluid and subject to change on a whim. So while this was a potential future, there's a small chance it actually would have occurred. Basically, it goes something like, if Horus beat the Emperor, the Civil War would not end. If anything, it'd get more vicious as mankind tore itself apart. Chaos would dominate the galaxy, but there would be nothing but bloodshed and war. The Chaos Gods would swell with power, however Horus would hate himself, his small shreds of nobility tormenting him and his actions until he tears his own forces apart, ultimately ending in mankind's extinction within a few centuries. The Chaos Gods, swollen with power, would then implode as their main food source is completely decimated, resulting in the death of chaos and a peaceful galaxy in which the Xeno races, most notably the Elder, would rise from the ashes and more or less repeat the exact same cycle that occurred after the War in Heaven. However, this prophecy hinged on Vulcan not being able to get to Terra and create the Talisman of Seven Hammers, a dead man's switch that basically meant if the Golden Throne was to fail or power down, then a mega nuke would completely obliterate Terra and wipe out everything on it and in the surrounding system. Vulcan did reach Terra and did create the Talisman, hence the Cabal's prophecy went kaput, and then Eldrad fucking killed them all, so no, the only in-lore prophecy we have of what could have happened is invalid and would not happen regardless. But let's pull it back a bit and set the scene. Terra is burning and the void shields of the vengeful spirit have been dropped. The Emperor, Sanguinius, Rogel and their elite warriors teleport onto the ship to fight the War Master. Sanguinius reaches Horus first and is killed. The Emperor arrives and the two warriors fight. The Emperor is brutalized, but begins summoning up a powerful psychic attack to obliterate Horus's soul. However, before he can do it, Horus impales him with his talon and then bludgeons the Emperor's skull in, killing the Emperor of mankind. The immediate aftermath is easy to know and would probably end in Horus's death one way or another. Rogel arrives in the chamber, seeing both his dead father and Sanguinius. He flies into a rage so deep that even Angron would blush. He fights Horus and honestly probably kills him. After all, Horus had just fought Sanguinius, the Emperor, and was still low-key dying from his wound from Leman. However, even if Horus was able to kill Rogel, it's probably for naught, as after a short while, Malkador's essence would fade, powering down the Golden Throne and activating the Talisman of Seven Hammers. In an instant, Terra and its surrounding space is completely eviscerated, not just physically but also on a spiritual level. Demons are not just banished, but given permadeath, as the entire legions of the Death Guard, White Scars, Blood Angels, Sons of Horus, Imperial Fists, Emperor's Children and World Eaters are also deleted. On top of that, many thousands Thousand Sons, Wordbearers, and Night Lords are also killed. The surrounding trader fleet also isn't spared, with the Vengeful Spirit and all other ships also getting in the Emperor's extremely spiteful revenge blast. Horus is annihilated, alongside the corpses of his father and brothers. Jagged-Eye Khan is also destroyed as he was on Terra. Same goes for Vulcan, who likely won't be able to regenerate due to the destructive nature of the talisman. Fortunately for the traders, by this point Angron, Magnus, and Mortarion had been banished through conventional means, hence weren't destroyed by the blast, with Perturabo having already quit the siege before this. It's not clear if Fulgrim was still on Terra at this point, but let's just say he is and also gets destroyed, cause you know, fuck Fulgrim. The Astronomicon also winks out, making warp travel extremely difficult. So Horus's victory almost immediately kills Horus, Fulgrim, and the vast majority of the traitor legions, as well as Vulcan, Jagged-Eye, Rogel, Sanguinius, and the Emperor. This leaves the Lion, Guilliman, Russ, and maybe Corvus alive on the Loyalist side, which makes the Loyalists seem outnumbered by the traitors until you realize that their legions are intact, whereas all the traitor legions, bar the Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, Night Lords, and Wordbearers, are now completely gone, with next to no chance of rebuilding. Magnus, Angron, and Mortarion are also going to have a very shit time attempting to return to real space, now that all their sons are dead, and there's a good chance they actually won't be able to reform in the warp at all. Either way, mankind is pretty fucked on both sides. Perturabo and his Iron Warriors begin to fortify the Imperial worlds they have taken, whilst the Wordbearers become the new primary Legion of Chaos, with Lorgar even probably attempting to take the title of Warmaster to himself, although it's a pretty empty title at this point. Conrad will have done what he did in canon, fucking off to Saguelsa with his legion, whilst the Alpha Legion will go to ground, not sure what the fuck to do, since the prophecy that they had based their legion's loyalty off was just now shown to be total bullshit. The Lion would go to Caliban just like in canon and would likely suffer a similar result, that being put into a coma as Caliban is sucked into a warp storm. Lehman would return to Fenris, the trip taking fucking ages due to no Astronomicon, however since he is a Primarch, his Primarchiness would eventually get him there. It's likely he would then enter the Eye of Terror to search of some way to atone for his failures, maybe even still seeking out the Tree of Life like he did in canon. Guilliman would return to Ultramar, re-establishing the Imperium Secundus as himself as the new Emperor, since there is literally no one else for the job anymore. It's also likely he would establish better relations with the Eldar out of desperation, recruiting their aid to help him get to Ultramar without the use of the Astronomicon. They would most likely help, seeing G-Man as a reliable ally. Mankind would live on, however their role in 40k would be massively diminished. On top of that, the very few surviving traitor Astartes wouldn't have Fabius Bile to help them with their gene seed issues, as he was on Terra when it went kaput. Likewise, the Loyalists would be confined to small pockets, with mankind returning to a similar status like they were during the Age of Strife. Most human worlds would fall without the support of the others, and the human population would plunge dramatically, further weakening chaos. The Xeno empires would rise, most notably the Greenskins and Eldar, since they now have a weakened galaxy to plunder. After 10,000 years or so, the Tyranids would still arrive and the Necrons would still awaken. It's unclear if the Greenskins or Eldar would be able to hold off or repel the Necrons and Tyranids, as the Imperium is currently doing in canon. Or maybe Guilliman was able to get another Astronomicon or Pharos device working, allowing the Imperium to be reborn. Maybe the spirit of the Emperor would reincarnate. After all, he was a perpetual, leading mankind into a second Great Crusade. After all, why would the Emperor have gotten Vulcan to create the talisman if it didn't provide mankind with a slim second chance? The Emperor wasn't really known as a spiteful sore loser who would do something like that for the lulz. It's also made clear in canon that Vulcan getting to Terra to create the talisman is extremely important. The more time that goes on, the harder it is to predict what would happen, as the infinite strands of fate would continue to diverge. But the most likely outcome would be a galaxy dominated by Xenos, as the last bastions of humanity fought to survive, until the Necrons and Tyranids turbo fuck everyone and then go toe to toe in the most hectic Xeno vs Xeno grudge match ever. The Milky Way would become a galaxy completely devoid of life, either by getting consumed by the Tyranids, or the only thing that walks would be the mechanical soulless legions of the Necrons. But let's quickly say the talisman malfunctions and doesn't go off, or Chaos is able to prevent it from ruining everything. Then the duel between Horus and Rogel would have a lot more riding on it. Regardless, Terra would be doomed, as Malkador's body dies, allowing the demons that were behind the webway portal within the Imperial dungeon to pour forth, attacking the Imperial defenders from the rear and overrunning Terra in hours. The traitors wouldn't be able to stay on Terra, however. With the Ultramarines, Dark Angels, and Space Wolves arriving, the traitors would have to leg it, as the Loyalists would exterminatus Terra, seeing it as a completely lost cause. Without the Astronomicon, the traitors can easily slip away from the Loyalists. Rogel Dawn would die, either at the hands of Horus or being trapped on the Vengeful Spirit. By this point, however, Horus had fulfilled his purpose and his death wouldn't actually mean that much. The traitor legions would carve up the galaxy and rule different sections, with a few remaining loyalists fighting for survival. Once the last of the loyalist Primarchs had been killed or were missing, with Ultramar and Fenris getting sieged and destroyed by overwhelming numbers, the traitors would turn on each other, tearing each other to shreds in a few generations, somewhat fulfilling the Cabal's prophecy. Humanity would be weak as shit, which would once again pave the way for Xeno dominance. So ironically, despite one of the main reasons for the Heresy breaking out being to make mankind stronger against Xenos, a Horus victory would more than likely result in aliens ruling the galaxy with mankind barely holding on. There is next to no chance that the divided traitor legions would have survived the War of the Beast. A clean Horus victory or the activation of Vulcan's talisman would end up with a similar result, the only real difference being that the talisman would give the Imperium a chance, whilst no talisman would forever doom the Loyalists. What is interesting though is there really isn't any future where Chaos gets to dominate and rule supreme. It's just not in their nature. They can't govern or manage a galaxy-spanning empire. The Imperium is fucked as it is, even having countless sextillion administrators to keep everything somewhat afloat. Imagine Chaos trying to do that. A bunch of fucking monkeys that wouldn't know how to turn a computer on. They are only somewhat competent in canon as they have a common enemy that they have to survive against. Take that away and gee whiz, their defeat at the end of the Heresy is probably the best thing that could have happened to them. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Major Mini. You won't regret it. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more theoretical content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.